and renowned scholars in the field of international relations and world politics. Professor Raj Gopalan from the Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament, JNU. Professor Veena Kukreja, Head of the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. Professor Navneeta Chadha Behra, Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. And Professor Swaran Singh, Chairperson, Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament, Jawaharlal Nehru University. We also have here with us the authors who have contributed to the book. A very warm welcome from all of us to everyone present here. I would like now to invite Dr. Rekha Sapra, Principal Bharati College, to start the event and say a few words. Dr. Sapra, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shelja. Indeed, it gives me great pleasure that our department research committee and the Department of Political Science is actively contributing to so much of research on welcome you all on this virtual platform. We have with us Dr. Nirmal Jindal, Dr. Kamal Kumar, authors and editors of this book. I welcome you, and indeed, going through the pages of the book, it is a beautiful and a very relevant and this at this point of time. Then we have Navneeta Behra ji. I welcome you on this platform.
Thank you.
Am I
Thank you.
audible?
Yes,
So
sure.
you're most welcome on this platform, and it is a privilege to have you all for this panel discussion with esteemed and distinguished speakers of political science. Professor Swaran Singh, Chairperson of CIPOD, you're welcome, sir. Professor Raja Gopala, Nirmal Jindal ji, and I welcome you all. And indeed, it's a privilege for me. And of course, Veena Kukreja, with whom I have been interacting very, very frequently during these days. You're most welcome to this platform. And now over to you, sir. Over to Dr. Shelja and Sangeet Sarita. It was a beautiful idea, wonderful idea to host an event under the platform of our research committee. And we are extremely thankful to all of you to have joined us. Thank you very much and most welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now like to invite Dr. Nirmal Jindal, Principal Satyavati College, and also the editor of the book that we are going to discuss today, to share her ideas that shaped the book, which will then be followed by an online release of the book by our esteemed guests. Over to you, Dr. Jindal.
Thank you, Shelza. First of all, I thank Shelza because a couple of days. Do you hear me?
We can hear you.
I request everyone to keep their microphones on mute mode, and the speaker is speaking.
So first of all, actually, some are on. Some echoing. Is it okay now? Okay, thank you. So first of all, I thank Shelza for taking the initiative for this virtual book release and book discussion, because a couple of days ago we had met and all these authors came over to get a copy of their book. And then we planned that we should have a book release and book discussion, because in these trying times, it is very difficult to do anything physically. So I feel really honored and privileged to have such esteemed and distinguished professors from Delhi University and JNU to release and discuss our newly produced book on international relations, theory and practice, which is result of the collective endeavor of all the young faculties teaching international relations in different colleges of Delhi University. So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Veena Kukreja, head of the Department of Political Science, and all the panelists, Professor Swan Singh from CPOD, and Professor Navneeta Chaddha from Delhi University, and Professor Rajesh Rajgopalan from JNU for taking out their valuable time to discuss our book. And I think that most of their suggestions and their feedback, we will try to incorporate in our next, edition. So I think that at this point of time, before I start anything about discussing the aim and purpose of this book, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Veena Kukreja, who wrote the foreword of this book. And she had been a source of inspiration and motivation throughout the writing of this book. And I also I'm equally grateful to all those professors who showed their confidence in our scholarship, and they wrote the words of appreciation for our book. So here I would like to name all those professors. Professor Swan Singh, Chairperson CPOD. I got in touch with him after a long time. I saw him on Twitter. I contacted him. I met him when he was young, student of JNU. And then, thanks to this social media that I got in touch with him. And now these days, throughout COVID, I've been associated with him through his AS webinars, weekly webinars, and really getting updated. Thanks, Professor Swan Singh, for doing so much for all of us. And Professor Ivica Petrikova from Department of Politics and International Relations, Royal Holloway, London. Professor Raffaele Marchetti from Lewis University, Italy. Recently, he has come out with a very interesting book on global cities. And Professor Dr. Gaurav Pathania from Georgetown University. So all these professors were very, very helpful. We had been interacting with them throughout writing the book, and they had been giving the suggestions. So I'm very, very thankful to them to really for their support and for their confidence, for their, all kind of encouragement to us in this endeavor. So as you know that international relations is such a rich field, and there are so many books, so many articles, so many journals on international relations. But we decided to write this book because there is not even a single textbook on the latest UGC LOCF. Because I've been teaching this paper for a long time. I'm on the verge of retirement of my career. So I think that I've been teaching it, and I started so early when this field was very, very narrow. We used to focus only on the positivist approaches or on the world wars, history, Cold War and stuff like that. And we used to study it from the Western perspective. But if you look at the latest syllabus, you see such a transition, such a transformation in the syllabus. The syllabus is so vast, has so many units, ranging from the origin of the discipline to the debates, major debates, levels of analysis, world history, theories, and the contemporary international phenomenon. So, if we look at the syllabus, there is so much of change because the world is ever evolving, changing, transforming. The meaning of security has changed. There is transition of power, transmission of power. The grand theories are questioned, and, there is a pursuit for a decolonization of the discipline. So all these things are, quite new for the students of political science. So when we ask students to, go through some books and articles for any of the topics, like different books for different topics, so they really, because, all the students at undergrad level, they are at the beginning of the discipline. They are just entering in the discipline. So just throw them in this kind of ocean, with such complex theories and such complex international phenomenon. It's very difficult for them, to cope up with that. And sometimes, they fall in trap of this, substandard material. So my purpose when I initiated writing this book, my purpose was to serve the interest of students. And here I thank the Department of Political Science also, because whenever they introduce the new syllabus, they encourage, the faculties from the colleges to, produce reading material for the students. So in 2018, we had produced the first book of the series on global politics, and we had such a wonderful response, because there was no textbook on global politics, and we had written it primarily for the students of undergrad, but now it is a part of the department's Delhi University syllabus also. So it was very, very encouraging experience for us. And finally, we decided to, write this book. So one of the, how this book, the strength of this book is that pedagogically, it has very rich contents. We have, tried to bring in a lot of charts, diagrams, tables, and, learning purposes, summaries, and glossary and everything, so that, it should have enriching experience for students. And one of the strength of the book is that we have tried to do it from the non-Western perspective. Earlier when we were teaching international relations, students were not feeling connected, or they were not feeling interested, because they were thinking that mostly they have to study about the major powers' interests, their politics, or their security issues and stuff like that. So in this book, we have tried to contextualize IR in Global South. And authors have intentionally tried to give examples from the Global South, from the third world countries. A lot of case studies are also given from the Global South, so that students should try to get interested. When they should get interested, they should get connected, and they should develop the analytical power, to understand things, and they can help in, contributing to the discipline as well. So it is a kind of attempt to decolonize the discipline also, in a way, because we have tried to do it from the Global South perspective. So one of the things that is important in this book is that I would like to highlight also, and that there are certain chapters which are included in this book exclusively. Earlier textbooks were, not including those chapters. They were missing on. So we are trying to fill. We tried to fill the gap, in this book. For instance, we find Westphalia and post-Westphalia. I mean, most were friends. That's the beginning of the discipline. And when we give the names of some articles, students want a comprehensive textbook, that where they should find everything. So chapters like European, Eurocentric theories and the Global South perspective, emerging centers of power, or, we had a chapter on Kautilya. We have a chapter on India's role in the emerging world order. And we also tried to, because we tried to update it. The book was ready when we requested SAGE to let us add a little bit about COVID-19 also. And here I admit that Professor Swan Singh's AS weekly webinars really kept me updated and really helped me to understand the impact of COVID-19 on the great powers conflicts and nuclear arms race, and how they impact the Indo-Pacific security or Asian security in general, and India's security in particular. So I think that most of the things we have tried to cover, and it will be very, very helpful and useful in all the information and the analysis that we have done in this book, that will be very, very useful to the students and also to the faculty members. If you ask the college lecturers what kind of books they're referring to, mostly, the Western books like Baylis and Smith, or, Andrew Haywood, or, so here, we have a book that is including the Indian perspective and the Global South perspective on IR as well. So we have tried to make it the discipline inclusive and global. I mean, the international relations should be global and should be more humanistic and more holistic. So this is what we attempted. So this book, though we wrote this book primarily for undergrad students, but I think it will be quite useful for those who are preparing for the competitive exams like UGC or NET, or other kind of competitive exams. So I think that it was a very nice journey with all the young colleagues, and I congratulate all of you for doing this wonderful job and contributing to the discipline of international relations that had been missing in Delhi University. I mean, the college lecturers had been doing a lot individually, independently, but I wanted that they should join hands to produce reading material for the undergrad students also, because it is our responsibility responsibility. And our next, plan is to write on conflict resolution, peace and conflict resolution. This is also one of the papers. So I'm sure that in about a year or so, we will be out with that third book of this series. And with this, I once again congratulate all the authors, and I thank you all, because without your contribution and without your support, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Thank you very much, and I thank all the panelists and our chairperson once again for your valuable time. So now we go for the virtual book release. So if any of you have a copy of the book in the hand, I don't know how to do it, because I think we just have it. I just try to fit myself in the, it's a good idea to go back. Is it done?
Congratulations to all of you for this book. It is a
Thank you very much, Dr. Sapra.
It is beautifully done. Like the way you have, even I was thinking that even in my subject we need to have this such a book. For, it is a wonderful book, and I'm sure I'll take a copy from our authors, our home authors, to give me a copy, and so that thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would now like to call upon my colleague, Dr. Sangeet Sarita Dwivedi, to welcome our distinguished panelists so that we can go ahead with the panel discussion after that wonderful release that we've had just now. Over to you, Dr. Sangeet.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Our renowned panelists need no introduction in this forum, as the panelists are stalwarts in the field of international relations. Their academic achievements are too vast to be accommodated here. Yet, it is my duty to mention very, very brief bio note about them. Dr. Veena Kukreja is a professor and head of the department in the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. Professor Kukreja specializes in South Asia and Pakistan studies. Her published works include Military Intervention in Politics, a case study of Pakistan, Civil-Military Relations in South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India, Contemporary Pakistan, Political Processes, Conflict and Crisis, Pakistan, Democracy, Development, and Security Issues, Democracy, Development, and Discontent in South Asia, Federalism in South Asia. She has published numerous research papers and articles in scholarly journals. She is at the editorial boards of national and international journals of political science. Dr. Swaran Singh is the professor for diplomacy and disarmament at School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Singh has 25 years of experience in research and teaching, and he lectures at major institutions like National Defense College, Defense Service Staff College, and all other major military institutions, as also Foreign Service Institute, Indian Institute for Public Administration, etc. We have seen and learned from Professor Singh on radio, television discussions very frequently. Professor Singh is formerly visiting professor at so many universities, to mention some: Australian National Universities, Sciences Po in France, University of Peace, Costa Rica, Shanghai Institute of International Studies, and a guest faculty at Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Professor Singh is on the editorial board of Asian Survey and Politics, Journal of Indian Ocean Origin, Journal of Indian Ocean Studies, Millennial Asia, and Professor Singh has traveled and written extensively on Asian affairs, China's foreign security policy issues, with special focus on China-India confidence building measures, and also on arms control and disarmament, peace and conflict resolution, India's foreign policy, security policy issues. And he has co-edited a number of books. And I will mention few: Transforming South Asia, Imperatives for Action, India and the GCC countries, Iran and Iraq, Emerging Security Perspectives, From Civilization to State, Emerging China, Prospects and Partnership in Asia, Asia's Multilateralism. Sir, the list is it has no end. It goes on and on. And Dr. Navneeta Chadda Behra is the professor in the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. She has been visiting Fulbright, George Washington University, previously professor in Nelson Mandela Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution, Jamia Millia Islamia University, Assistant Director, Women in Security, Cooperation, Conflict Management and Peace. Ma'am, you held various visiting positions in University of Warsaw, University of Uppsala, Sweden, University of Bologna, Italy, Central European University, Hungary, visiting fellow, and your list is also endless. And you have received Kodikara Award from Regional Center for Strategic Studies. You have written and edited books extensively on international relations. Your writings have been prescribed in the foreign universities as essential readings. India engages the world, facing global environmental change, environment, human, energy, food, health, and water security concepts, international relations in South Asia, search for an alternative paradigm. Dr. Rajesh Rajgopalan is Professor of International Politics in Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament Studies at School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Previously, he was Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, New Delhi, and Research Fellow at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, New Delhi. He also served as Deputy Secretary in the National Security Council Secretariat, Government of India. He has taught at Hunter College, Brooklyn College, Queens College of the City University of New York. His publications include Nuclear South Asia, Keywords and Concepts, Fighting Like a Guerrilla, the Indian Army and Counter-Insurgency, and Second Strike, Arguments about Nuclear War in South Asia. Sir, you have contributed number of chapters in edited books, and your articles have appeared in a number of academic and policy journals that include International Affairs, the Washington Quarterly, Contemporary Security Policy, India Review, Contemporary South Asia, Small Wars and Insurgencies, South Asia, South Asian Survey, and Strategic Analysis, as well as in Indian newspapers, including Economic Times, The Hindu, The Indian Express, Financial Express, Hindustan Times, and other media, including theprint.in. It is an absolute privilege to have you all with us today. And without further delay, let me welcome you all once again. And now over to you, Professor Veena Kukreja. Ma'am, you kindly take this forward and waiting to learn from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeet, for the warm welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Rekha Sapra, Principal Bharti College, University of Delhi. Dr. Nirmal Jindal, Principal Satyavati College, University of Delhi. Distinguished co-panelists, Professor Swaran Singh, Professor Raj Gopalan, and Professor Navneeta Chadda Behra, conveners of the program and colleagues. I am delighted to be a part of this book launch and panel discussion, being with you only virtually. This edited volume of International Relations, Theory and Practice by Nirmal Jindal and Kamal from SAGE is a collective effort of young teachers and scholars of Delhi University that covers a wide range of topics. This book is very timely contribution on the eve of 100 years of the discipline of IR, which commenced with the establishment of the first chair of the University of Wales in 1919. This volume seeks to revisit IR in view of the changing global scenarios. Since from its existence, the discipline of IR has evolved, developed, and transformed radically and has become quite complex. The major transformation in the field of IR is that it is no longer a state or security centric discipline. It has taken into account the economic interdependence, non-state actors, challenges of globalization, human security, environmental issues, drug and human trafficking, migration, refugees issue, technological challenges, and terrorism. The architecture of global governance has impinged on the on the autonomy and power of the state. Since its inception, IR has remained Eurocentric, and the theories of IR are rooted in the Western historical realities and intellectual tradition. Non-Western theories have been non-existent virtually. The marginalized global South perspective emerged quite late in the realm of IR theorization. Since the early 80s, IR theory has been seen the emergence of more reflective form of theoretical inquiry as realist, liberal, and Marxist orthodoxies in IR have submitted critical scrutiny. The alternative post-positivist IR theories, such as critical theory, postmodernism, begin to address epistemological, ontological, and normative questions, which traditionally had been marginalized. These alternative theories provided a different lens to understand international relations. Although the discipline of IR has been evolving and developing since its inception, it got drastically transformed after the end of Cold War. The end of Cold War, followed by the unipolar movement, dominated by the US with the unipolar movement rapidly fading, paved the way for emergence of multipolar or multicentric world, which may be labeled as multiplex world, which offered many opportunities as well as challenges to the global south. Recently, coronavirus pandemic has accelerated changes in the global multilateral system that been on over the past few years. Even the coronavirus pandemic unleashed the devastation across the globe. It reminds us the value of multilateralism and necessity to preserve it. But the problem is that multilateralism is possibly weakest today when need for it is more than ever before. During the pandemic, we find that UN remained inactive and how WHO was manipulated by China. There is a confusion prevailing at the international arena because we find on the one hand, the conservative nationalist regimes are on the surge. On the other hand, we find there have been talks of deglobalization. So it is imperative, there is a lot of confusion prevailing. So it is imperative to imagine a new global multilateral order responding to the geopolitical equations of the 21st century. So this volume provides a comprehensive and relevant resource to the BA Honors and BA program UG courses of Delhi University and provides the students with the major shifts. It provides information about the major shifts in the discourses of IR. This study also presents a theoretical as well as analytical discussion of the fundamental challenges posed to the discipline of IR and provides a holistic perspective to understand IR, the global realities. Besides this book is written in simple English and the students can grasp the subject very well. Another, USP of this volume is that it incorporates the non-Western global South perspective of the discourse of IR and explores the Indian traditional thought of Kautilya and his contribution to the modern IR. So this textbook is very useful for the undergraduate students, and I appreciate this compendium that covers IR theories as well as international history, and it is a product of the intellectual engagement that brings, I'd say, product of a collective intellectual engagement that brings best out of the collective minds. So I urge the editors as well as the publishers to bring out the Hindi version of this volume, as will be immensely useful for the large number of Hindi medium students. Many congratulations to the editors of the book and contributors of the book. I look forward for more collaborative volumes in the continuing years, as Dr. Jindal has said that within a year they will come out with a volume on conflict resolution, and the coming years from this theme. So I'm looking forward for this volume coming from this theme, and wish all the very best for their future endeavors. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Sangeeta?
Sangeet, can we begin with the panel discussion? You can,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think all the speakers can take 10 to 15 minutes. So we can start the discussion with Professor Swaran Singh.
Thank you, Sangeet. I'm delighted to be part of this panel discussion on a book which has enormous potential. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Professor Beena Kukreja and of course Professor Rekha Sapra and my dear and old friend Professor Nirmal Jindal. I also noticed my own colleague Dr. Prasant Sahu is with us. He's just moved from Delhi University to my center. It's a great meeting of friends in that sense, which brings us together on this very important occasion of sharing enormous amount of work that goes into producing a volume of this nature. But since Professor Jindal did mention of our old connections, I was doing my PhD when she had published her first book called War, War as a Political Weapon in Nuclear Age. And I was doing my own PhD on limited war is when we got connected at that time. Of course, we were all lost in our own sort of chase, and then we met recently during pandemic again. And thank you for acknowledging Association of Asia Scholars Wednesday webinars. You credited us, I think, beyond what we deserve. But let me invite all of you in case you have interest. We now have moved to first and third Wednesdays of every month because people are getting back to normal lives. When we were all restrained in lockdowns is when we started. So whole of last year we had every Wednesday, 11 a.m. in the morning, 11:30, and now we have also moved the time to 5:30 in the evening. Sorry for this bit of self-advertisement, but since Professor Jindal mentioned it, I thought let it not be a mystery as to what is it that she's crediting me for. Of course, I am also, as she mentioned, already part of the praise for the book. So I can only expand on my praise for the book further than there. People in the panel and several of you are familiar of publishing books, and it takes enormous amount of effort. And editing a book has very different kind of challenges of making sure that all your contributors are on time, are keeping same quality and standards and style and format. So to this reader, I think the first compliment goes to editors for ensuring that quality and the standardization of format, even language, I must say. So obviously enormous amount of editing with due respect to all the contributors must have gone into producing of this volume. I understand that. Second compliment enormously, which makes it very reader friendly and very, very easy. You know, if you allow me, by the bedside book, you love to read it. You know, go on to sleep while thinking about what you're reading. Enormous use of graphs and boxes and blurbs, which makes it really very, very attractive for especially young readers who are going to be introduced to this discipline, and to entice them in that sense into pursuing interest in discipline much deeper. And that is how you see readings, and it says further readings. So those of young minds who may be keen on either reading Kautilya or neo-Marxism, Marxist theory, or any other part of the book could then pursue and read much beyond. So in that sense, it's a very user-friendly reader in that sense. And I think, let me also add, when I was a young student, my master's is of course from Delhi University's Political Science Department. The reader which was kind of most sanctimonious at that time was Professor Mahendra Kumar's book, Theoretical Aspects of International Relations. So in that sense, it has taken such long time for Delhi University to produce such a useful next volume. Of course, Navnita has written her own work on international relations in South Asia, but not exactly in the format of reader for undergraduate students in that sense. So after several decades, we get to see a book, I'm sure, which might go now into several editions in coming times. And of course, when it goes into several editions, is when you start being much more ambitious and then start thinking of what else can happen. I heard Professor Veena Kukreja saying that you know, it could be made available in Hindi. I also remember another similar reader on international politics by Rumki Basu is available in Hindi now, and is also free available as e-book. So potentially, once the publishers had made enough money out of your volume, I think this could be made available for free as an e-book for wider dissemination, not just within India, but even beyond India in that sense, because it's much easier to make it accessible to several other readers around the world if it is an e-book, especially if it is a free e-book. But I understand publishers have commercial propositions, so it might take some time. Indeed, possibly, you know, these are things which are increasingly much more easy to do. Also translating the book in other languages, you know, at least the Indian, major Indian languages, for instance, Bengali or Tamil could be major important languages in which enormous amount of literature is already being produced. So this could potentially think of other translations as well. So in that sense, certain things can happen in terms of production. But if you really allow me to say something on what more could be added in terms of contents, I would be kind of ambitious in that sense to like to see that future editions could maybe add on more readings from Indian authors. There could be addition of more readings. Several of our own colleagues have done good amount of work in various areas. Of course, we have not produced any reader like the one we are talking about now, but some increased maybe focus on Indian writings, so that in that sense the connectivity, as Professor Jindal was saying, that students feel in reading that text and sort of feeling at home in that sense could happen much more. Another element that I was perhaps also looking at, to go back to my own memories as a master's student in political science department, Professor M.P. Singh used to teach modern Indian political thought. There was Western political thought and modern Indian political thought, if my memory serves me right. So, excellent chapter on Kautilya, but it kind of stops there. Are there any, obviously several, Gandhi, Nehru, Tilak, so many, Ranade. There could be also focus on modern Indian, just like the full paper on modern Indian political thought, modern Indian IR theory contributions in that sense. That could be another component that perhaps you could find another exciting contributor for the future editions to think of that area to be also covered, so that it looks like a continuum. I remember one of our students under Professor Rajesh Rajgopalan has produced a PhD on grand strategy during the Mughal times. So even that period could have some possible, opportunities to mine Indian thinking on IR theory, which could perhaps be sort of culled out to maybe produce a book, produce a chapter, or maybe you could collate different periods and different sources to produce one chapter. And that takes me possibly to my last point, which I think is significant. After such an excellent collation of chapters, and in fact, let me also compliment Professor Jindal to give enormous opportunities to create a young team of academics in that sense. And that is a very significant task of all of us as senior scholars in the field, to also create a next generation of scholars who are committed to producing serious work in that sense. So the book has already created a team of scholars. I'm also aware of your other book which you mentioned, Global Politics, and good you mentioned about conflict resolution being your third volume to come. And that is going to make several people very envious of you, because Sage Text has produced only 36 volumes on political science and international relations. And out of that, if you are going to be the editor of 3, that's going to make you fairly noticeable, to say politely, but envious, I'm sure also. But also happy to know, because in 2013-14 sometime, in your lifelong learning institute in South Campus of Delhi University, Uttam Sinha and I was co-opted into this team to brainstorm building of this curriculum on conflict resolution for undergraduate students in Delhi University, which we did. And then, of course, we had to move to also produce materials for reading, which, of course, we all got distracted and didn't happen. But great to know that that part of the work is also being covered, and conflict resolution is another area of my interest. I look forward to reading that volume when that comes out. So happy to know that that task was not kind of completely left out, but a volume is also coming out of it. And as I was saying, the last point then, after looking at Kautilya and modern Indian thinking on IR theory, is the constant search that some of us have had in our mind about Indian IR. What is the Indian school, or is there an Indian school? Can there be an Indian school where you could both devise or at least define the prevalent concepts, paradigms, theories from Indian perspective to suit in kind of highlighting the uniqueness of India in international system, which of course, as all of us have said repeatedly, since we kind of remain mostly focused around the country, I would say, on reading still. I mean, when I was a student, then Morgenthau was the kind of must read. Now I understand Kenneth Walls and Mearsheimer's and others are important, but to look at some kind of Indian take on what is IR, and I think that is an ambitious task, but I'm very confident that this volume will have future editions. It's going to be widely used, potentially produced in multiple languages. And if in case sooner or later you are still having energy enough to go for the next edition of the same volume, maybe some of these things could be added into next volume. But this volume is excellent production. The standardization of all chapters is very impressive. I love paperbacks. I am somehow not as comfortable with hardbound copies because you can take paperbacks with you wherever you're traveling or going, and it's easy to read sitting in a chair. So good production. Let me close by saying something which does not apply to most of the audience today. For someone at my age, I think the font is a bit smaller. So it particularly makes it useful for younger generations because their eyes are much better. So is their understanding, I assume, and curiosity. So I think it's going to be a volume which will go a long way in I think attracting larger number of young minds to the discipline, and that will be your great contribution in promoting the discipline itself. So the compliments and congratulations to both Professor Nirmal Jindal and Kamal Kumar. It's a great team. I assume that Kamal has at such a young age achieved 2 volumes to his credit, which are textbooks. And so great going for both of you. Congratulations to all contributors because now you are all connected. And depending on who wrote which chapter, you can constantly depend on each other in exploring more, knowing fully well that the other person has done a good amount of work in other component of international relations theory. So best wishes from my side, and thank you for making me part of today's discussion. Thank you so much. Back to Sangeet.
Thank you, Professor Swaran Singh, for making valuable inputs for the future edition of this work. And now I will invite Professor Navneeta Chadha Bera for her comments.
Navneeta, are you there?
Over to Navneeta.
I'm so sorry. I think my mic was off because
Oh,
I
okay.
was just keeping it off. I'm keeping my video still off because my link today is for some reason very unstable, and I am almost nervous that it shouldn't completely go off. So just kindly bear with me. For that reason, for the connectivity reason alone, I'm not kind of using the video right now. I'll try and switch it on, but the moment it tells me poor connection, I kind of quickly switch it off. So thank you, Professor Kukreja, for inviting me and the organizing team of the book launch. And of course, most importantly, Dr. Nirmal and Kamal for this excellent initiative of producing this textbook, which I would completely agree with my friend and colleague, Professor Swaran Singh. I think it's an initiative that is much needed, and I'm sure students more than anybody else would really see value in the book of this quality, and the depth and the strengths of the book is, of course, the whole range of issues that they have covered. And of course, congratulations to each and every author who's contributed to the book. Again, I agree with Swaran that you've got an excellent team together, and I'm sure all of you together can pull off not just one more book, but may you publish many, many more, and let this be one among several others. There's already been one, Global Politics, I know, so this is second in the series. I think that partly 2 or 3 main comments that I just want to make was, one is the timing, because as Nirmal pointed out at the beginning of her talk, and Professor Kukreja also pointed out, it's a very critical time for the discipline as such, sort of having marked its sort of century, so to say, in 2019. There is a lot of introspection going on in terms of what has the discipline of IR achieved, where does it still has its shortcomings, its weaknesses, how do we go forward from here? And one of the main things that has been we've been witnessing for almost like a decade now, more so, but particularly in the last 1 decade, is there is almost a concerted attempt by a cross section of global scholars in trying to decolonize the discipline. And what I mean by decolonizing by discipline is basically actually revisiting the whole foundational assumptions of the discipline itself. There are a whole lot of sort of researched books that have been hitting the sort of book stands in the past few years, and some of them have really put a question mark on what should I say, the givens, on the conventional wisdom that we've all stood by, we've believed in, we've also taught to our students over the years. The first one, of course, being that the discipline was born in the interwar years because the major problematic, if I can use that word, of the discipline was how to avoid war. Having gone through the First World War, how to avoid a world war, although the Second World War, of course, happened. And that is how the so-called fictitious debate between the idealism and realism is supposed to have played out. There is a lot of revisiting of those kind of foundational questions, that is the core of the discipline, is the purpose of the discipline was really to avoid war, or was it basically to maintain and control the instruments of power that the imperialist powers had created over the period of the preceding 3 or 4 centuries. There are volumes by, one of them is, of course, a scholar of CPOD, Vinit Thakur, with Peter Whale. We were talking about the absolutely silenced question of race, the imperial origins of IR. Very interesting volume, worth looking at. Barry Buzan and Amitav Acharya have written about 100 years of the discipline, but trying to historicize the discipline in terms of, is the history of the discipline, is the birth of the discipline really as Eurocentric, or do we need to look beyond Europe and what's happening? I really wanted to commend both Nirmal and Kamal, and of course the author of the chapter on Eurocentrism in the book, and even on Westphalia, because these are sort of holy grail kind of assumptions that are there in IR, and I think it's time we debunk some of these given assumptions that the birth of the modern state system can be traced back to Westphalia, and the whole world has to be sort of recreated in the image of Westphalia. So we talk about modern state system, we often talk about Westphalian state system. The terms kind of become co-terminus. And it is not just misleading. Some of us have argued it's created havoc in the societies in large parts of the world, in sort of trying to create a state that is imitating the Westphalian. Bit of a disastrous move, and many are realizing. Closer home, South Asia, and I'm sure when Nirmal said that, one of the critical objective of the book is to be able to speak in a language that your students relate to, and I couldn't agree more with her. My 2 decades of teaching experience in Delhi University, that's one thing that has taught me, is to teach and evolve your pedagogy in a way that students remain interested, and they can relate to what you're teaching them, to better understand their day-to-day lives, to better make sense of the world around them. And I have often also felt that disquiet in the classes, that the way we've when I joined Delhi University in 2002, the kind of syllabus we had in the name of theories of IR, we used to teach just about everything, from terrorism to drug trafficking to, I mean, you name it, we have it. We used to teach just about every issue that was taught in IR. Very little focus on theories of IR. That, of course, has undergone a big change, and I'm glad Nirmal kind of values the changes that have been made in the syllabi of Delhi University. It's been a hard-fought battle with colleagues from different colleges, from within the department, from the external peer reviewers and faculty. But it's been a worthwhile endeavor that we've all collectively enjoyed in. One other reason why I really appreciate the timing of the book is because after 10 years of struggling with trying to sort of reorient the discipline, that's personally one of the insights or one of the conclusions that I have gained, is that pedagogy is really your real battleground. Because what's happening is that even if we were to produce well-researched books which question the Eurocentrism, which actually add or bring knowledge that has been generated from non-Western sites in the world, often what is happening is, consciously, unconsciously, we are teaching the canon, the standard canon, to our students. And first we teach them the canon, and then we tell them to unlearn the canon and say that, by the way, this is not the whole story. There is more to it. I wish a day would come in my lifetime when we can change things around, and when we can say that there is no singular canon. There are indeed multiple realities. There are indeed multiple worlds. There are indeed multiple ways of learning, studying, doing IR, and not just one way, which seems to be having this sort of unsaid, but a sort of epistemic privilege that it sort of has. And we sort of keep engaging with it. And even when we are engaging with it critically, we still end up using it as a central reference point. I think that's the next level of battle. We need to change that. We need to stop using the Western canon as the reference point. We need to be able to explain. I mean, I've been, over the last few years, I have been interacting and working in a collective endeavors with colleagues drawn around the world. And this one particular encounter I remember that happened, I think, in 2 years back in Ecuador, where there was a room full of people where somebody was talking about Indian philosophy that I knew nothing about. And somebody was talking about Africanas, somebody was talking about Confucianism. Of course, one could speak a little bit about, sort of the Hindu philosophy, and Islam, of course, and of course, the European Enlightenment, the canon. And it's interesting, what we realized was that if you were to truly be paying attention to the philosophical worldviews of different parts of the world, our understandings of the daily core concepts that we deal with would be so much more diverse and richer and nuanced, which they are not even now. So we don't need to talk about state, for example. We need to talk about statecraft. Modern state, one can still argue a product of, European imperialism that spread around the world. But statecraft is an old technique, as old as political communities were around the world. So I think pedagogy is really the next ground that, faculty around the world, I think, needs to be tackling on head on. I look forward to the day when colleagues like Nirmal and Kamal and several other younger scholars who have joined hands for writing this book can, keep pushing us in the direction where, we are no longer the exception. We create a level playing field where these voices are equally heard, and we are not constantly sort of, tackling or engaging with one norm. And we no longer remain the exception. I want to come back to the book and just have 2-3 suggestions for them. And I agree completely with my with my colleague Swaran that I'm sure this book will see several more editions to come. I think the strengths of the book that I particularly liked was not just the title says theory and practice, but it also has a rich dose of history. So it's really trying to historicize the IR, which I think is again a much needed and much sort of long overdue kind of an attempt, and making students aware of it. And of course, the second one, I completely agree with Nirmal, is that using your own vantage point is very important to uh, arouse the interest of students in a way that they can critically engage with the subject. So grounding India as a vantage point is a very useful pedagogical device to sort of get students really involved in interactive debates in the classroom. And the standardization of the text is another really strong point. But it's only in this regard that I just had a couple of suggestions. One is that the book already has a set of questions at the end. I would suggest a little graph box separately, let's say for the students and for the faculty, which is a little provocative in its thinking. For example, in the Westphalia, I mean, is Westphalia really the beginning of the modern state system? Or has it been made to appear so naturally, historically, but not so the case if you were to actually read world history? Is take any other subject, is feminism, the whole chapter gave a whole lot of, it kind of summarizes and familiarizes the students with the debates on the feminism. But if you were to not take feminism in a typical IR genre, but pick any one Indian feminist scholar and take any question that you like, just as a point of just as a peg for a debate, to a faculty member, to a student. What would the class debate look like if you were to begin, let's say, with something written by Sarojini Naidu or Savitri Phule or somebody else? So in that sense, I mean, if you can just that creating a platform and opportunity for students and the faculty to actually gaze into alternatives through the class debates. If you can just sort of include that spark in the book somewhere, who knows where it flies. It's something that I feel both faculty members who would use this textbook for teaching and students would perhaps appreciate. Just a thoughtful way of turning around the debate, and just not taking what has been given to you as a given, and start sort of trigger a spark for a critical engagement. And one last one is that in terms of the topics that are there, while I completely agree and appreciate as to how it has to corroborate to the syllabi to make it useful for students. I was recently part of a textbook that we wrote for students of Global South everywhere, the world over audience. It's literally called the Words of Difference. And as a contributor author in that, one of the toughest things that we found, we were all given a brief, was start the textbook chapter with a story that explains the limitations of the standard thinking on your given subject. And it's interesting, if I can close with a nugget, all of us found it very difficult to find that one story, capturing it in like 100 words. How do you narrate a story that just shows you the terrible limitations of showing not just to students of Global South, but actually we wanted to show to the students of Global North just as well as to how limited their standard textbooks are in making them understand. So I'm just going to stop here with just telling you in 2 minutes the 2 little short stories that I wrote on the state and sovereignty chapter. And I picked my example consciously, actually, both from the Global North, one from the Global South, but I will keep that one aside for some other occasion. The 2 Global North stories I had one was from Poland. This little girl used to hear this story from her grandmother, that grandfather used to live somewhere close to the Polish border. But her grandmother never used the word Poland. But so the little girl would ask, grandmother, but why? Why always Polish border close to German? So was the grandfather German? The actual story is that I don't remember the years, but for some 1500 years, there was no Poland. Okay, Poland was divided up into 3 or 4 parts, part of Russia, part of Germany, part of, other adjoining states. Poland had come into being again at what juncture? So she said, okay, so would you say then we are not really Polish? Are we really Germans in terms of our ancestry? Her grandmother said, if a cat was to give birth to her children in a tea cabinet, you would not start calling them teacups. They would still remain kittens. The moral of the story was that territory is not your defining characteristic of who you are and what a state looks like. It's really who you are. And this was bang in the middle of Europe, where we're talking about, Europe having given us Westphalia. And the second story I came up with was of a Native American in America, United States of America, the superpower of the world, who was very wanted to celebrate the Pueblo Native American community getting claims back to a lake. After 70 years of struggle, because President Roosevelt had taken over this blue water lake and just appropriated it as part of a national forest. After 70 years of his struggle, the Native Americans got back the sovereign rights over that lake. And this little girl was happy celebrating it. To her mind, the idea of Native Americans enjoying the sovereign rights over a lake, which was part of a sovereign state, United States of America, there was no contradiction at all. Sovereignty meant something very different to her, because being a Native American, sovereignty had more of a cultural import than a territorial import. The point that I'm trying to make is what Nirmal began with. Real life stories is an excellent way of connecting with students. The textbook has to speak to the students in ways that can help them make sense of the world around them. This textbook, I'm really happy to say, goes a long way in doing that. So once again, congratulations to the whole team for putting it together. May many more to come. Look forward to seeing each and every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Navneeta, for making valuable remarks about how, the debate, the discourses of IR can be taken to next level of engagement, and there is a need to pay more attention to the diverse, richer, and nuanced IR rather than engaging with one norm. Now I'll invite Professor Rajesh Rajgopalan to say a few words.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Let me begin by thanking Professor Kukreja for chairing the session, and Professor Sakra, Principal of Bharati College, and Professor Jindal, both the author as well as the Principal of Satyavati College, and of course my old friends Sangeet and Shailas and Swadesh, for inviting me to this program. Going last on a panel is always somewhat problematic because I'm just going to have to repeat a lot of things that my two esteemed colleagues said earlier in terms of congratulating the editors and the authors of this volume. It's really, but that is, I'm not doing it by rote because it really is a terrific piece of work. One of the things that I face when I teach IR, is that students, even in MA, even though we do use a lot of original readings, I still find that students who come from different parts of the country and so on, do want something that's an introductory text. And usually we have been using some of the Western texts, and it's always a problem because they're expensive. They're not really, as Navnita mentioned, not really seem to have a lot of examples or relevance directly to things that they know. So having a textbook written by Indian scholars with their particular perspective, using Indian examples, I think is excellent. And this is really, really very well written, written very simple language, and covers a fairly wide area, both in terms of diplomatic history as well as IR theories. So I mean, I think that there is so much to like about this particular volume that I could keep going on and on, because I really don't want to repeat everything that others said, but definitely congratulations to the editors and authors. And I was also quite pleasantly surprised. I think Professor Varan Singh mentioned this earlier, that there is a commonality also in the style, in terms of how the chapters are written, which also is. Which speaks to a level of professionalism that I think is rare when we do edited works, especially. I mean, it's usually one decent chapter and a couple of so-so chapters, and all written hastily and so on. But this is I sometimes recommend The Economist to my students as a way of sort of understanding how beautifully and simply language is written. But this is in that sense, a kind of a format of the format and language and so on is so well written, so simply written, that I think it's an excellent contribution. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I was invited for this panel, but it's also that I find a lot of interest in students. We have students from not just my own School of International Studies, but we also have students from School of Languages, engineering students, and so on and so forth, who are constantly writing to me and saying, can I come and attend some class in SIS, either my class or other classes, and what's the rules? And I tell them, just go talk to the professors, go attend the classes. That indicates a level of interest in international relations that I think was probably always there, but I think now we have various reasons, communications, various career opportunities and whatnot. I think it allows a lot more people to sort of give vent to their to sort of follow their interest much more than was the case when we were coming up. I was lucky to be allowed to follow my own interests, but I know most of my cousins had to either do engineering or medicine, or worst ones would go to commerce, and that's it. I mean, international relations, political science, these things were left aside for people who failed at everything else. I mean, so that it was not a matter of choice in that respect. And I think now we find a lot more students who choose it because they're interested in it, and who want to learn and who want to sort of study, but who don't have access to, I mean, starting from the simplest things such as the cost. I mean, some of the books that we traditionally had were, with the exception of one or two that Professor Varan Singh mentioned in the beginning, which are quite outdated now, but didn't really have textbooks that an average BA student or undergraduate student could access, or even a graduate student who does not have that background would want to access. So that was always a puzzle. That was always a problem, and I really didn't know how to deal with it. But I think now that we have this book, that in a sense resolves some of those problems. But as I said, I mean, I think part of that interest comes as a consequence of a growing interest in international politics, and but also which is which partly the reflection of the nature of the international system as we have it presently. Growing tensions. I think we all sense that we are living in sort of momentous times, and not just because we're all stuck in our homes and interacting with everybody else through Zoom and things like that. But I mean, there is a sense of change. I mean, there's a sense of tremendous sense that we are living through periods that are rare, and periods that are transformative, and some periods that lead to something else. And so I think that is also part of the reason for that interest. I mean, it's also that India itself is in a position, is at the is at the forefront of some of these changes, and all of that leads to this kind of interest that we have, that I see in students, and their sort of deep desire to learn about international politics. There is also, I think I would agree to some extent with Navneeta, but not entirely, about the nature of the discipline and what our task is, and so on and so forth. I am a bit skeptical of the idea that theories have any kind of geographical or spatial sort of or geography centered. I mean, when people talk about realism, there is generally this assumption that somehow realism is somehow a Western import. Considering that we can claim the world's oldest realist, I think that's a little bit of a little bit silly to sort of suggest that realism is that, and it is our fault. I think I would agree with Navneeta. That's our fault that we haven't fully explored some of our own what we have as a resource in terms of Kautilya and Arthashastra and his concerns, and how he talked about statecraft and so on and so forth. So this is not, I mean, that, and of course we have Sun Tzu and we have others, and we have our own epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana, all of which give tremendous, give us a tremendous sort of understanding of the task of statecraft and the practice of statecraft. I think which is important, which is, I personally, this is where I and Navneeta have had this disagreement before, but don't see a huge amount of difference where this statecraft is practiced. I mean, I think that is not something that I find a lot of disagreement about. And then, so in a sense, it is we do need to. I think self-criticism is important. I mean, I think that is, we periodically do need to navel gaze. I mean, but navel gazing can't be the only purpose, right? I mean, we also need to explain the world. And the primary purpose of theory is explaining and understanding the world. So that part, I think, requires us to take all the theories that we can find and see which of these suit our requirements. I mean, and I fully agree that for me at least, theory is something that is very personal, in the sense that something that I tell my students all the time, which is that theory is something that has to be a personal decision, in the sense that it is something that we have to be convinced about. I mean, so I'm not going to promote realism to my students, nor am I going to promote a particular theory. I mean, they have to be convinced, and so but to be convinced, they need to know, and I think they need to know all of the theories, and so irrespective of where it comes from, even if I disagree about what the source of various theories are. I mean, I would suggest that post-colonialism is a Western import. I mean, it's not really an Indian theory in that respect. So this is at some level, I think we can go around and around the mulberry bush on this about finding where the source of theory is and whatnot. But what is necessary for students is to have different ways of understanding the world and decide for themselves which of that best explains the world to them. I think that is why I always tell my students that it is an intensely personal experience in that respect. A theory should be able to, for you personally, should be able to make sense of the world. If it doesn't, then it's not a good theory. If it does, it's a good theory. I mean, that's all there is to it. There is no general. I can't tell anybody what a good theory is and what a bad theory is. But it's also, I think, one of the things that I liked about this book, in addition to the fact that it sort of deals so competently and in a simple and straightforward manner with very useful examples from the Indian context about theory, is also the fact that it has a very, very succinct sort of chunks of recent diplomatic history. That also goes to, I'm sure this will have later editions. I endorse what both others have said, Professor Swaran Singh and Navnita have said, that that there should be a Hindi edition. Absolutely, there should be a Hindi edition. There should be editions in other languages, and I think it would be a very successful volume even in other languages, in Hindi as well as in other languages, Indian languages. But as you go about revising this future editions of this, and I think this has got a lot of staying power. I remember an editor once telling me, when I was submitting an article, a chapter or when we were sort of discussing a book project, I was him saying that we should be lucky if the book has a shelf life of about 5 years. I mean, this thing I think will have a shelf life easily in the decades. So I think that as you revise these, a couple of suggestions, I think Professor Swaran Singh and Professor Behra made very good suggestions, but I would also sort of suggest a couple of points. One is that, as I said, the diplomatic history part, global diplomatic history, is very well done. But one of the things that I think this misses out is that a lot of the best work on Indian IR in India have come from Indian diplomatic historians over the last 10 years or so. The Srinath Raghawans and most recently Tanvi Madan and Rudra Chaudhary, and all of these people who have done enormous work in terms of unearthing India's own diplomatic history, right? I mean, because Indian our own history, and that part, I think, how that diplomatic history has changed, I think needs to be also somewhere included, maybe as an additional chapter or two in this volume. Some of our own students from SIS have done stellar work in sort of unearthing India's nuclear history, to give another example. And so I think that part, and there is a huge additional amount of work that remains to be done in Indian diplomatic history, because one of the great things about the incompetence of the Indian state is that they don't have enough people to peruse all the stuff that they're putting in the Indian archives, and so they have just dumped anything and everything that they have beyond a particular year, and so we have everything from some of the most classified stuff, which I personally might not have been more suspicious of releasing. Nevertheless, they haven't had the competence to actually think about what they should release and what they shouldn't release, which is good for us as researchers and as academics, because they have released a huge chunk of material up to the 70s, and that forms essentially the bedrock of future work on Indian foreign policy. And Indian foreign policy itself requires a lot more work. And I think that diplomatic history part, I think, can be expanded from the global part of it to regional as well as Indian diplomatic history. I think Indian diplomatic history, Indian history of India's security policies and things like that, I think that requires a little bit more attention in future editions. That also can provide that impetus for future work for students who are interested in that and who would get interested in those kinds of topics. So I think there are I think this is stellar work. This is yeoman's work that the authors and the editors have done on this. It could one or two additional chapters, and I would comment, or I would sort of second all the great comments from everybody else that everybody else has made about the book. But one or two additional suggestions of this nature. But once again, congratulations to all of the authors and the editors, and I'm sure that as this book gains wider publicity and sort of circulation, as we start, and 5 years down the line, as we teach international relations in our classrooms, we will see the reflection of this in the kind of students that we have, and the kind of background knowledge they have, and so on and so forth. So again, hearty congratulations to everybody associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rajgopalan, for making invaluable suggestion in terms of adding the Indian scholarship on the diplomatic history of India, and adding something on the security policy of India from the history of India's security policy, nuclear policy. So with these additions, I think the second volume of this book will be more comprehensive, and more updated version will come in next few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Firstly, I would really like to thank Chair of the Day, Professor Veena Kukreja, the speakers, Professor Swan Singh, Professor Navneeta Behra, Professor Rajesh Rajgopalan, for giving us knowledgeable and inspiring discussion on the book. You also introduced us to all the text related to IR, and as we have seen the two sides of the same coin, like we need few more add-ons, more readings from the Indian authors must be incorporated to the present the Indian perspective, how we have to revisit the discipline that is need of the art, how we should take up small questions to start the process of writing a chapter, how a story should be added in the beginning to connect it to the audience, to the students. And we need to look beyond the Eurocentric viewpoint of the international relations. And of course, as Rajesh has said, that a theory is something which is personal. Like a primary purpose of theory is to explain the world, and it has to be seen from one's own perspective. Theory have nothing to do from any geographical or spatial perspective. So it is of course our fault that we still need to be explored. So self-criticism is also welcome. And now I would like to open the house for your comments, observation, critique, or any other query. And I would also like to mention here that all the contributors of this webinar, and they are also welcome to share their views, their wisdom. And thank you to all the panelists for mentoring us and giving us the small triggers or new direction on which we can revise our work, and we can start new project with new direction. And as Rajesh has said, that all the chapters showed a similar kind of standard, like not one best and the second less better. So, the credit goes to Nirmal ma'am for continuously guiding us and mentoring us how to write the chapter in a particular way, the way it is written. And the house is open for your comment, questions. Thank you.
Can I make a comment before anybody asks a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
About the font size. Actually, the book became so lengthy, and the SAGE people wanted to have a certain number of pages. And finally, they asked us to, because we have a plan to write another book on India's foreign policy, because that's also a paper in Delhi University. And they wanted us to add a chapter on India's foreign policy. And they asked us to share 2 chapters later on we had to add. And they were asking us to cut short the size of the chapters and things like that. So finally, the font became very small. Even I felt it. So that's really bad. But so that's the reason that the font, Professor Swan Singh, The book became so bulky, and these people had to take out the book in specific number of pages, so that's why the font is very small. But we will see.
That is why I said. That is why I said if I have an e-book, I can zoom it, and I can.
If anybody has any comments or observations or any questions, you're most welcome. Otherwise, we just wind up the session. Thank you very much, Professor Swan Singh and Professor Navneeta and Professor Raj Gopalan for your comments and observations and all the suggestions. We will try to incorporate. Otherwise, also in the teaching, because we also have some limitations sitting here in Delhi University colleges. So I think sometimes we have to get in touch with you and before start writing and while writing. And now, you know, virtually we are meeting, and it is easier to get in touch with all of you and to get guidance, you know, from the university professors to improve the quality of our research and quality of our writings. I think in our future, because Professor Swan Singh, we are going to come to get in touch with you for our third book. Because it's good to know that you know you can guide us in to create a quality work. And Professor Rajesh Raj Gopalanji, we will get in touch with you also for our future work. And thank you very much. And Arvind is here, sitting in London, and I think he almost reached without he left without writing his chapter. And from there, you know, he was trying to do his work very hurriedly, but I said that no compromise with the quality. And finally, he did it. Thank you very much. So thank you so much, our chairperson, Veena. She has been very, very busy, but I had personal request to her to spend some time for us. And I'm very thankful to you for all your guidance, your direction, and your support to all of us. So, and Kamal, you have been always, you know, my support, my right hand for any technical kind of work, because, you know, I'm not very well versed with all this technical stuff. He has been working very, very hard and meeting the, you know, deadlines, you know, to complete the chapters and stuff like that. So it has been a wonderful experience for me to work with all these youngsters, lot to learn from the youngsters as well. So I'm very much delighted, and now we have a group of people in Delhi University, and I think it will strengthen a group of people in Delhi, IR people in Delhi University, and we'll try to contribute at least for our students. Thank you very much for all your presence and your time and your guidance to all of us. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
I would now request Dr. Sangeet to give a formal vote of thanks.
I take this opportunity to thank you all. First of all, I would like to thank our guests. Thank you so much, ma'am and sir, for giving us your valuable time. It's been a privilege to be able to listen to you, all of you. It's going to be a huge learning experience for all of us. And now I would like to thank our two principals, Dr. Rekha Sapra, Bharati College, and Dr. Nirmal Jindal, Satyavati College. Without your support, this collaborative effort could not have been successful. I would like to thank the editors of the book, Dr. Nirmal Jindal and Dr. Kamal Kumar, for bringing in all the efforts in this volume. I really appreciate the guidance and support you provided to all of us. Now I would like to thank our research committee, Bharati College, for providing us a platform for the release of this book, and the whole organizing team of the college. Special thanks to Dr. Ankit, Dr. Vandana, and Dr. Samhita. I thank my colleague, Dr. Shalja Singh, convener, research committee, also a contributor in the book, for her leadership in organizing this program. I would like to thank all the contributors for this joint endeavor and taking out time to attend this program. We are looking forward to many more future collaborations in the field of international relations and global politics, world politics. I would like to thank the teacher in charge, political science, Satyavati College, Dr. Swadesh Singh, for all his support. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we need your blessings always for all our work. Thank you.
And
It
I
was
thank all my
Thank you so much, Sangeet. I think for all your integral support, without which I think we wouldn't have been able to manage this even today. Thank you, everyone. We've had our sessions of, patting on the back and motivations, incentives and guidelines to work in future. Looking forward to more engagement and collective academic collaboration in future. Thank you, everyone.
Many
Yes,
congratulations once again, and all the best to you. Congrats to Nirmal and Kamal,
Thank you so much, ma'am.
and also to the contributions and the organizers of the webinar, with Shalja and Sadesh Singh. So it was a very engaging session, and I am happy to be here. So looking forward for your next book. So thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
very much.
Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
sir.
everybody.
Thank you, sir, for
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
taking
ma'am.
our
Thank you.
invitation.
Acha, Ajay is